My parents gave me 48 hours to move out of the house I had spent 7 years saving from foreclosure. They looked me in the eye and said it didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to my sister. They didn't care that I had poured more than $90,000 of my own hard-earned money into this place. They didn't care that every piece of furniture, every repair, every bill that kept the lights on came from me. To them I was just temporary. A placeholder. A daughter who could be pushed aside so their favorite could have her dream life. But here's what they didn't know. Their plan was never going to work. Because the house they tried to take from me wasn't theirs to give away. And when the truth came out, their scheme didn't just fall apart. It destroyed everything they thought they could control. By the end of this story, my parents lost everything, and my sister's picture-perfect wedding crumbled before it even began. It all started on what was supposed to be an ordinary family dinner. I should have known something was off the second my mom insisted I wear something presentable, as if I wasn't already running a boutique in Tampa's busiest shopping district. Still, I showed up, tired from a long day of managing my shop, but willing to keep the peace. I walked into the house, my house, and immediately noticed strangers' voices in the living room. An interior designer was holding up fabric swatches against the windows. My younger sister, Victoria, was twirling around the space like she was auditioning for a reality show, chattering about her wedding colors. Confused, I asked, "What's going on?" My mom's smile was sharp, practiced. "We wanted to wait until dinner to tell you. Victoria and Derek are going to get married here. And after the wedding, this will be their home." My fork nearly slipped from my hand. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But no one else was laughing. "You can't be serious," I said. "I live here. I've been paying for this house for years." Victoria barely glanced at me. She waved her hand like I was background noise. "Well, you were living here rent-free, so it balances out. Derek's already planning to turn your little garage space into a home gym." I felt the blood drain from my face. My parents sat there, calm, rehearsed. My father cleared his throat and said, "You have 48 hours to pack your things. We've already promised the house to Victoria. It's the right thing to do. The right thing to do." 7 years. 7 years of skipped vacations, canceled dates, 14-hour workdays, also I could keep paying the bills, and carrying out needed renovations, after Dad's injury and Mom's career collapsed. I had sacrificed more than anyone ever asked of Victoria, but apparently none of it mattered. Inside I was shaking. I looked around the dining room, at the new chandelier I had installed, the refinished table I had paid for, the fresh paint on the walls, all things I had worked for. Every corner of this house carried a piece of me. And now they wanted to hand it over like a wedding gift. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process the betrayal. And that night, as Victoria clinked glasses of champagne with Derek and my parents toasted to their new beginnings, I was already making a promise to myself. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of theirs unraveling. I wish I could tell you my parents' betrayal came out of nowhere. But the truth is, it was the final slap after years of me bleeding for this family. 7 years ago, my dad slipped on the construction site and shattered his hip. Overnight, our world fell apart. The mortgage company circled like vultures, threatening foreclosure. My mom was drowning in bills, and everyone kept whispering that we'd lose the house. I was 22 at the time, working at my little boutique and dreaming about expanding into a real storefront. But instead of chasing that dream, I took every penny I had saved and shoved it into the mortgage. My boutique's expansion died that day. My dream went on life support so my family's roof could stay over our heads. And that was just the beginning. When my dad's recovery left him needing the master bedroom downstairs, I moved my things into the converted garage. The floor was freezing concrete, the ceiling leaked every time Florida storms hit, and the air reeked of gasoline. Meanwhile, my parents took the big master suite with its walk-in closet and private bathroom, while I took the other smaller room. But I told myself it's fine. You're doing the right thing. Family comes first. Every time a bill came, every time the house needed repairs, guess whose bank account it came out of? Mine. The new roof? Mine. The central air when it broke in July? Mine. The kitchen remodel my mom wanted? Mine. I poured more than $90,000 into that house over 7 years. Not as charity. Not as rent. As an investment in the home I believed was also mine. And now? Now they tell me I was just freeloading. Do you know what that does to you? To hear the very people you sacrificed for erase your contribution? To watch them take your blood, sweat, money, and years, and hand it over to someone who never lifted a finger? That night after they told me, I lay awake in the garage, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time, the anger started to drown out the grief. I whispered into the dark, "No. Not this time. You don't get to take everything from me. Not after what I gave up." I had no idea yet how I'd fight back. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end of my story. When my parents dropped the bomb, "You have 48 hours to move out. The house belongs to your sister now." I felt like my entire chest caved in. I stumbled back into my room that night, shaking, clutching the same 4 walls I had slept in for years. This wasn't just a house. It was my life's work, my sacrifice, my prison, and my promise all rolled into one. And now they were ripping it out from under me. I called Claire. My oldest friend. My safe place. My sounding board. And conveniently, a lawyer. The moment she picked up, I couldn't stop the words from pouring out. "They're giving the house to Victoria." Just like that. After everything I did for them. Claire listened quietly. Then, in that calm, piercing way only she could, she asked the one question that cut through my sobbing rage. "Wait, Eliza, whose name is on the deed? Remember what you told me about what your grandmother said?" I froze. I had never asked. I had never even thought about it. To me, the house was ours. Did it matter? Of course it mattered. Yours or theirs? Claire pressed. The question rattled around in my head like a stone in a jar. That night, I lay awake replaying every memory of my grandmother. She was the one who had bought the house decades ago, back when Tampa real estate was dirt cheap. I was only 16 when she passed, but I remember her last words to me clear as crystal. We were sitting on the porch swing. Just the two of us. Her frail hand on mine. She looked at me with eyes that carried both love and regret and said, "Mi casa es tuya. Eliza. Always remember that. My house is yours." At the time, I thought she was just being sentimental, passing along a blessing. But now it echoed in my chest like a riddle I had ignored. The next day, I asked my mom straight up, "Hey, whatever happened to Grandma's will?" Her face tightened. "What do you mean?" "You know, when she passed, didn't she leave something?" "Who did she leave the house to?" She fumbled with the dish towel in her hands. "She didn't have much. It all went to us." "Why are you asking about that now?" Her tone was too sharp, too defensive. My dad wouldn't even look me in the eye. And suddenly, all those little things I had brushed off came rushing back. The hushed arguments after Grandma's funeral. The way my parents had snapped at me when I once suggested the house felt like Grandma's gift to me. That night my mom told me, "Don't go digging in things that don't concern you." At the time, I thought it was grief. But now, it smelled like something else. Secrets. That evening, I sat across from Claire at her tiny law office, my hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. "Claire, do you think my parents were even the rightful owners?" She leaned back, tapping her pen against her notebook. "If your grandmother said the house was yours, and if she had a will, then it's possible. Very possible. Especially if your parents have been evasive about it." Her words made my heart pound. "So what do I do?" I whispered. "We will find out if there's a will. If there is and it names you as the heir, then legally, this house was never theirs to give away." Her words lit a fire in my chest. For the first time since this nightmare began, the despair cracked enough for something else to seep in. Hope. That night I went digging. I pulled out every old file box from the garage, rifling through tax forms, mortgage letters, medical bills, even birthday cards my grandmother had saved. Dust stung my eyes, but I didn't care. I was hunting for the truth. And then I found it. A yellowed envelope at the bottom of a stack of old receipts. Addressed to my grandmother. Stamped from a law office I vaguely remembered visiting as a child. I held it in my shaking hands. Could this be it? I didn't open it right then. I couldn't. All I knew was this. My parents weren't telling the full story. And if what Claire suspected was true, then my parents hadn't just betrayed me. They had stolen from me. And that That was a mistake they were about to regret. The morning after I found that yellowed envelope, I marched it straight to Claire's office. My hands were trembling the entire drive, like I was carrying something radioactive. Claire carefully slid the papers out, scanning the faded ink with her sharp attorney's eyes. She frowned. This looks like correspondence, not the full document. But if there was a will filed, there should be a copy in the county probate records. She looked up at me. If your grandmother left instructions, they'd be on file somewhere. And if she named you as heir, she let the sentence hang in the air like bait on a hook. I swallowed hard. Then my parents never owned the house in the first place. Exactly. The next day, Claire called me while I was in the boutique, pretending to care about fabric swatches when all I could think about was my family's betrayal. Meet me at the courthouse at 3. I found something. My knees almost buckled. The Hillsborough County Courthouse smelled like paper, dust, and secrets. Claire walked out of the records office with a thin file in her hands, her expression unreadable. She motioned for us to sit on a bench in the hallway. Eliza, she said softly, I think you should read this yourself. I took the file like it was made of glass. Inside was a crisp, official-looking document stamped and signed. The title read, Last Will and Testament of Rosa Martinez. My grandmother. My chest tightened. I blinked rapidly to keep the words from blurring. And then I saw it. To my beloved granddaughter Eliza Martinez, I leave my home at 412 Palmasea. I couldn't breathe. My heart slammed against my ribs. She had named me. Explicitly. By name. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. My grandmother had given me the house. Not my parents. Not Victoria. Me. Claire touched my arm gently. There it is. Black and white. I covered my mouth, half laughing, half crying. It felt like my grandmother was reaching across time, across death itself, to defend me when I needed her most. But that rush of love and relief quickly burned into something darker. Rage. Because if this will had been on file, then my parents would have known. They had known all along. I thought back to that night after her funeral when I asked if Grandma had left anything behind. My mom's sharp tone. My dad avoiding my eyes. They hadn't just been grieving. They had been lying. For 7 years, they had let me bleed myself dry. Paying mortgage, repairs, utilities, groceries. All for a house they knew wasn't theirs. A house they had no right to. A house that legally, morally, spiritually belonged to me. And now, they were trying to hand it over to Victoria like it was some kind of party favor. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear something apart. But instead, I closed the file carefully and handed it back to Claire. Okay, I said, my voice low, steady, dangerous. Now I know the truth. That night, I stood alone in the empty boutique, lights dimmed, fabric bolts stacked neatly around me. I thought about my grandmother, how she had taught me to sew on her old Singer machine, how she believed in me even when no one else did. She wanted me to have that house. She trusted me to carry the family legacy. And my parents had spit on her wishes. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. If they thought I was going to walk away quietly, they were dead wrong. From that moment, everything shifted inside me. I wasn't just the daughter who sacrificed. I wasn't the sister who got pushed aside. I was the rightful heir. And if they wanted war, I was ready. As for Claire, she didn't waste a second. She filed an emergency probate petition with the county court, fast-tracking the process to validate my grandmother's will. That one move shifted the legal ground under my parents' feet. Until the court reached a decision, they couldn't sell, transfer, or even borrow against the house. Not that they knew yet. I was learning something powerful. The element of surprise wasn't just satisfying, it was strategic. Meanwhile, Claire advised me to do something else. Document everything, she said firmly. Every couch, every appliance, every piece of flooring. If you paid for it, you claim it. Don't just tell me, prove it. So I did. That night, I barely slept. I pulled out binders of receipts, old credit card statements, and even text messages with contractors. I built a timeline of 7 years of sacrifice. By the end, I had a mountain of proof. The kind of proof that didn't just speak. It screamed. I knew that my parents would be going to church the next day. That was when I was going to make my next move. When I called in the moving company, I made sure to hire the best. They didn't just lug boxes, they specialized in high-end relocations. They brought professional photographers, documented every item before wrapping it, and created a full inventory for insurance. If anyone tried to claim I had stolen from the house, I'd have receipts, photos, and sworn mover statements to back me up. And while I quietly built my case, my parents were busy building something else. A fantasy. Every day, I overheard fragments of their plans for Victoria's dream wedding. Carmen gushing about floral arches in the backyard. Roberto pacing on the phone with a caterer, complaining about shrimp prices. Victoria prancing around with Derek, talking about how the guest list had ballooned to 200 people because everyone important in LA wants to come. They spoke about the house like it was already hers, like my life, my sacrifices, my years of sweat and tears were just a temporary placeholder until the real star arrived. Every chandelier I bought was now a wedding centerpiece. The yard I landscaped was the perfect aisle. My grandmother's home, which I had saved from foreclosure, was now being sold off as Instagram content. And I was expected to just disappear. Then came the red flag. A very big one. Claire called me one evening, her voice tight. Eliza, your parents took out a loan against the property. $40,000. I froze. Wait. They can't do that, right? The house doesn't legally belong to them. Exactly, she said grimly. They forged the documents. And worse, they're already spending it. My stomach churned. On what? Wedding expenses. Deposits. Vendors. Victoria's dream day. That was the breaking point. Because if I didn't act fast, the court might validate the will. But I could still be stuck with a mountain of debt my parents had racked up against a property that was never theirs. They weren't just stealing my inheritance. They were setting me up to inherit their mess. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was survival. So I doubled down. I went through every drawer, every closet, pulling out anything that had my signature or payment behind it. Claire drafted affidavits, attaching my receipts. Movers packed methodically, room by room, stripping the house down to its bones. I watched silently as they unscrewed light fixtures I had bought, rolled up rugs I had chosen, even removed the custom closet system I paid to install. Each item wasn't just furniture. It was evidence. It was leverage. And as all of this was happening, my parents were floating in blissful ignorance. And just before she left for church with my dad, I overheard my mom bragging to her sister on the phone. Oh yes, the house is practically paid off. Victoria and Derek will have such a strong start. Eliza will land on her feet. She always does. I wanted to laugh. If only she knew the court papers sitting on Claire's desk. If only she knew that they move almost all of the furniture and appliances to storage. If only she knew that the house she thought she was gifting to Victoria was about to slip through her fingers forever. But the truth was, part of me wanted them to keep dreaming. Because the bigger their fantasy, the sweeter the moment it shattered. The sun was just peeking over the neighborhood when the moving trucks rolled up to the driveway. Not one, not two 326-footers lined up like soldiers ready for war. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, calm as still water. I wasn't frantic. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was prepared. Because every single item inside that house, every couch, every stainless steel appliance, every ceiling fan, even the engineered hardwood flooring, I had the receipts. And today it was all going with me. The movers, big guys in work boots, filed out of the trucks. One of them, clipboard in hand, gave me a polite but puzzled look. Ma'am, you sure about this? The whole house. I handed him the thick folder Claire had put together, every invoice, every dated check, every credit card statement tied to her name. Yes. Everything that I bought. Nothing more, nothing less. The foreman flipped through the pages, whistled, and nodded. All right then. Let's get to work, boys. And just like that, the operation began. Neighbors peeked out from their blinds like prairie dogs. Curtains twitched. Phones came up, recording little snippets as the men carefully unmounted the flat screen, rolled up the rugs, boxed up the designer furniture. Mrs. Henderson across the street leaned on her fence, whispering to her husband. I knew something was off with that family. Always so showy. The couple next door, who had attended every one of Victoria's look-at-me cocktail parties, shook their heads in disbelief. They're clearing it out? Everything. I could feel the stares. But I didn't flinch. I kept my face composed, my voice steady, and directed the movers like a seasoned general. The dishwasher? Unbolted. The washer and dryer? Loaded. The stainless steel refrigerator? Wrapped and wheeled out. Even the ceiling fans were unscrewed from the mounts. The flooring, yes, even the flooring, was carefully pried up panel by panel. Every piece of this house that my sweat and money had built was leaving with me. One of the movers muttered under his breath, "Man, I've seen some wild jobs, but this is next level." Another chuckled. "She's cool as ice though. Respect." By early afternoon, the house looked like a hollow shell. The echo of boots on bare plywood replaced the cozy hum it once had. And then, like fate had planned it for maximum drama, Victoria's white Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Derek's truck right behind it. They stepped out, smiling, chattering with a clipboard-toting wedding planner trailing behind them. The planner carried fabric swatches and a sample seating chart, rambling about floral arches and champagne fountains. Victoria swung open the front door with her usual dramatic flair, only to freeze mid-step. Her voice cracked the silence. What the hell? The house was gutted. Empty walls. No sofa. No art. No appliances. No flooring. The planner blinked, looking around. Is this a remodel situation? Derek's jaw tightened. He stormed inside, stomping across the bare subfloor. Where the hell is everything? I didn't flinch. I was leaning against the banister, clipboard in hand, as calm as if I were waiting at the DMV. Victoria spun around, her face red, her perfectly curled hair shaking. What did you do? I looked her dead in the eye. I took back what's mine. The scream that erupted could have shattered glass. You can't do this. This is my house. I held up one of the receipts. No, Victoria. This is Dad's estate. And until the probate decides otherwise, everything in here is mine, because I paid for it. Derek threw his hands up, pacing in disbelief. This is insane. Who even does this? One of the movers muttered under his breath. Smart woman. Victoria whipped out her phone, dialing frantically. Emma. Dad. You need to get over here right now. She's stealing everything. Her voice cracked as she screeched into the receiver. The wedding planner's here, the house is empty, and she's standing here like some smug little witch. I remained still, collected. I knew the more Victoria screamed, the more unhinged she looked. The wedding planner, clearly uncomfortable, backed toward the door. I think maybe we should reschedule. Don't you dare leave. Victoria barked. But the planner slipped outside anyway, muttering something about not being paid enough for family drama. Meanwhile, the movers carried out the last of the chandeliers. Each fixture carefully wrapped, each piece loaded into the truck. When the final box was taped, the foreman returned to Eliza. That's a lot. You want us to follow you to storage? I gave a small nod. Yes. Thank you. He tipped his cap. Honestly, ma'am, I've never seen anyone handle a storm like this with so much grace. Hats off. Victoria lunged toward me, eyes blazing. You ruined everything. You're jealous, aren't you? You couldn't stand to see me happy. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult. I simply replied, happiness built on lies and stolen money doesn't last. Derek growled. We'll sue you for this. Just wait. I handed him a copy of the probate petition Claire had filed. You might want to read this first. Because the court's about to learn what you and my parents have been doing with the house equity line. The color drained from Derek's face. He knew exactly what she meant. And that's when our parents pulled up. The stage was set. The house was empty. The neighbors were watching. The wedding dream? Crumbling. And me, calm and collected, had just dropped a truth bomb that no amount of screaming could erase. The rumble of tires on gravel announced their arrival before anyone saw them. My parents' SUV screeched into the driveway, brakes squealing. Both doors flew open. My mother stormed out first, lipstick smudged, hair disheveled, face twisted in rage. My father followed, red-faced, waving his hands like he was already mid-argument. They didn't even knock. They barged straight into the gutted house, voices booming. Eliza! What on earth do you think you're doing? Mom sparked. This is outrageous. You've embarrassed us in front of the entire neighborhood, my dad added. But I didn't rise to their anger. I sat calmly on a folding chair, one of the few items left in the house, my thick folder resting neatly on her lap. My composure only fueled their fury. My mom faced me. You've lost your mind. Ripping apart your sister's home? You've gone too far this time. I didn't flinch. I slowly opened the folder, pulled out a crisp set of papers, and set them on the bare kitchen island. I replied to her. Actually, I've gone just far enough. The room fell silent for a split second. Even Victoria, who had been pacing like a caged tiger, froze. My dad pointed to the document in my hand. What is this supposed to be? The will. Dad, you knew this house was left to me. You both knew. And yet you handed it to Victoria like a party favor. And then, I held up another packet. You leveraged it for a loan you had no right to take. My father's face was drained of color. Don't twist this around. We were protecting the family. You've always been selfish, Eliza. You hoard, you hold grudges, you. I raised a hand, cutting off my mom with surgical precision. For 7 years, I was your safety net. Every time you overspent, every time Victoria needed rescuing, every time Derek blew through his paycheck, I was there. Quietly patching the holes. Quietly paying the bills. That isn't selfishness. That's survival. Victoria let out a sharp laugh, her voice dripping with venom. Oh please. Stop playing the martyr. You think anyone's impressed with your little folder of receipts? Newsflash. No one cares. This is my wedding, my house, my future. I looked straight at her. Come. Unblinking. And replied to her. Your future? Built on my money? My work? My inheritance? No. Victoria. That's not a future. That's theft dressed up in a white gown. Victoria's smirk faltered. Derek shifted uncomfortably beside her. Derek stepped forward. Wait. Hold on. What does she mean, your money? I thought your parents paid for all this. Victoria's face stiffened. She avoided his eyes. I smiled. You didn't know, did you, Derek? The appliances, the furniture, even the flooring beneath your feet. Every dime came from me. Your fiancé has been living in my investment, planning a wedding with money that doesn't belong to her. The silence hit like a thunderclap. Derek's jaw tightened. His eyes darted to Victoria, searching for any hint of denial. But Victoria's face betrayed her. Flushed, twitching, defensive. Is that true? It's complicated. She's just trying to make me look bad. Victoria replied. No, Victoria. You don't need my help to do that. I interrupted. My mother tried to regain control, her voice softening, dripping with guilt-laden sweetness. Eliza, sweetheart, listen. Families fight. Families sacrifice. We only did what we thought was best. You've always been so strong. You can handle it. Victoria. Well, she's fragile. She needs more support. Don't punish her for that. My composure cracked just enough to reveal steel underneath. Fragile? She's 30 years old. At what point does fragile turn into manipulative? At what point do you stop excusing her and start holding her accountable? My father slammed a hand on the bare counter and roared. That's your sister you're talking about. No. That's your golden child. The one you hand everything to, no matter the cost. And I'm done paying that bill. Victoria crossed her arms, trying to snatch the spotlight back. You're pathetic, Eliza. Nobody likes you. Nobody ever has. You think a pile of receipts makes you better than me? You'll die alone, buried under spreadsheets and a heap of clothes while I'm living in this house, married, happy, with everything you'll never have. I didn't raise my voice. I leaned forward, my words slicing cleaner than any scream could. Better alone with my integrity than married to someone who doesn't even know who you really are. Derek's head snapped toward her. What's that supposed to mean, Victoria? I slid a paper across the counter toward him. A highlighted bank statement from the illegal loans my parents took to fund Victoria's wedding. It means she's been planning her dream wedding on debt she doesn't own. Debt that, if I hadn't caught it, You'd have married right into. Derek's face contorted. Anger. Shock. Betrayal. You used her inheritance to pay for our wedding? Without telling me. Victoria sputtered. It's not like that. Mom and Dad said it was fine. They said she wouldn't care. I interrupted her before she could continue. They said I wouldn't notice. But I did. My mother's voice cracked. Desperate now. Please. Eliza. Think of the family. Think of appearances. If this gets out. I stood. Straightened my shoulders. My calm had transformed into authority. And replied. Appearances? That's all this has ever been about for you. But I'm done hiding behind your lies. I'm done being the bank account you bleed dry. And I'm done being your victim. My voice echoed through the gutted house, bouncing off the empty walls with finality. For 7 years, I was your safety net. From now on, I'm done being your victim. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Our parents looked stricken. Victoria's mouth opened but no sound came out. Derek shook his head in disgust, backing away from her. The balance of power had shifted. The house wasn't just empty of furniture. It was empty of the lies that had lived there for too long. And me? For the first time in 7 years. I finally felt free. The showdown inside the gutted house was only the beginning. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the county courthouse, the Florida sun beating down, papers in hand. The ink was barely dry. The house was legally mine. Claire had moved fast with the emergency probate petition, and the judge ruled in my favor. My grandmother's will was ironclad. The property with all its equity rightfully belonged to me. By the end of the month, the deed had been transferred to my name. And almost as quickly, I signed it away, selling the house to a young couple eager to make it their first home. I didn't hesitate. I wasn't just cutting ties with the building. I was cutting ties with the chains my family had wrapped around her for years. My parents, though? They weren't so lucky. The loan my father had quietly opened against the house didn't vanish with the sale. Legally, the debt was theirs. And when the bank came calling, there was no Eliza safety net left to bail them out. The numbers were brutal. Tens of thousands owed, payments already behind, interest climbing fast. My father's pension was just about covering it. My mother's side hustles selling luxury candles barely paid for groceries. Within months, the family who once strutted around as if appearances were everything was drowning. The whispers at church, the calls from creditors, the constant fights echoing down their once pristine street, it was all out in the open now. They had tried to steal a house. Instead, they inherited ruin. Victoria fared no better. Her dream wedding had been set for that very backyard. $75,000 in deposits, contracts, vendors lined up for the event of the season. Except there was no backyard anymore. It belonged to strangers. When word spread that the venue was gone, vendors pulled out. Deposits were lost. Photographers cancelled. The caterer refused refunds. The florist took her money and walked. And Victoria was stuck in a battle to get back her refunds. Victoria's carefully curated Instagram countdown to the big day went silent. And Derek? He didn't stick around. Weeks later, he officially called off the engagement. In his words, he wasn't about to marry into a family that feeds on lies. Victoria's perfect wedding dissolved into ashes, her fiancé gone, her future uncertain. She had mocked Eliza for being alone. Now she was the one abandoned. And then came the extended family. At first, my parents tried to spin the story, claiming I had overreacted or manipulated legal documents. But lies don't hold long against truth backed by court records. Claire made sure of it. The will, the probate ruling, the evidence of the loan was on record. And I didn't hide. I told my side plainly. I had paid the bills, I had saved the house, I had honored my grandmother's legacy while my parents tried to erase it. My parents, once respected pillars of the family tree, became cautionary tales. The greedy ones who tried to cheat their daughter and ended up exposed. And if that wasn't enough, the neighborhood sealed their fate. Everyone had seen the moving trucks. Everyone had seen the furniture, the appliances, even the ceiling fans hauled out one by one. They'd watched me, calm and collected, while my parents ranted in the driveway like mad people. By the time Victoria showed up with Derek, screaming about her house, the gossip had already taken root. After the showdown, the story spread like wildfire. Block parties buzzed with whispers. Facebook neighborhood groups lit up with speculation. Someone even posted a blurry photo of my parents yelling in the empty kitchen. My mother hated nothing more than public embarrassment. Now she lives in it daily. Every trip to the grocery store came with side eyes. Every Sunday service was a walk of shame. They had wanted status. Instead, they earned humiliation. Meanwhile, I moved into a sleek apartment downtown. It wasn't as big as the house, but it was mine. Paid for outright with the proceeds of the sale. No mortgages. No debts. No parents hanging their failures around her neck. My boutique flourished too. With my finances free of family obligation, I poured my energy back into design. With the proceeds of the sale, I finally gave myself the gift I had been denying for years. I expanded my boutique. What once was a cramped shop tucked away on a side street in Hyde Park became a flagship store in one of Tampa's busiest shopping districts. The sign above the door no longer read just Eliza's Boutique. Now, in bold gold letters, it carried a new name, Rose's Designs. It was my tribute to the woman who had believed in me from the very beginning. My grandmother. The seamstress who taught me the patience of a needle, and the quiet power that comes from creation. Inside the new store, racks of my original designs lined the walls. Customers browsed dresses that blended modern elegance with little touches of my grandmother's old-world craft. For the first time, I wasn't just selling clothes. I was showcasing a vision. And people noticed. Local magazines featured my line. A Miami fashion blog even called me one of Tampa's rising stars. For years, I had put my dreams on hold to keep my family afloat. Now, those same dreams were carrying me higher than I ever thought possible. One evening, Claire and I sat on the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the bay. A bottle of wine stood between us, our glasses half full, the air warm with the scent of salt water and jasmine. "To Rosa," Claire said, raising her glass. "To Rosa," I echoed, my voice soft but steady. In that moment, I felt my grandmother's presence, like the gentle stitching of thread binding scattered pieces into something whole. Claire smiled. "You know, most people would have folded. You didn't just survive. You turned their betrayal into your freedom." Her words sank deep. For so long, I had defined myself by what I did for others. By how much I could sacrifice. By how much I could endure. But now I was building a life on my own terms. Looking out across the city lights, I let my thoughts shape into words. Not just for myself, but for anyone who had ever been underestimated. They thought I was weak. A caretaker. Someone who would sacrifice forever without question. They thought I'd roll over when they took the one thing I poured my soul into saving. But they were wrong. I paused, breathing in the night air, my voice carrying both pain and triumph. I finally chose myself. And that was the day I truly became free. From eviction victim to the victorious heir. My story wasn't just about revenge. It was about transformation. The house my parents tried to weaponize against me had become the foundation of my independence. Their betrayal, the thing that nearly crushed me, had instead fueled my rise. And my family? The ones who underestimated me? They were left to watch from the sidelines as I built a future without them. I didn't just keep the house. I kept my dignity, my inheritance, and my grandmother's legacy alive. Most of all, I kept myself.